Great to be here. It's always energizing for me being at a Scratch conference and getting a chance to interact with all of you. I want to start by giving a really special thank you to the Raspberry Pi Foundation, which has just done such a great job of bringing this together along with other sponsors of the conference. I think we feel a special connection because we see such a strong alignment between what we're doing with Scratch and what they're doing at the Raspberry Pi Foundation. There are a lot of obvious connections to the fact that Scratch runs on the Raspberry Pi computer and has from the very beginning. Even when we first came out with Scratch, it wasn't so easy to make it run on the Raspberry Pi, but they really worked hard to make that happen. In the last year, our team has worked closely with the Raspberry Pi Foundation to make sure that the new version of Scratch is working on the new version of Raspberry Pi, which again, we were that it was generously given to all the participants here. So we appreciate that. And then of course, the connections with code clubs and coder dojos, where Scratch is such an important element there. But I think there's deeper connections beyond those. I think one thing that really stands out to me is that there's such a strong connection between our mission and our goals and our values that both at the Raspberry Pi Foundation and Scratch, there's this deep commitment to trying to open up creative learning opportunities for all children from all backgrounds and all places around the world. So I really feel we connected with that. I think that's what makes a strong connection there and what really serves as a great foundation for this conference. So I was really happy. It was a year ago at the Scratch conference at MIT that Philip and I were talking, and he was suggesting the idea that maybe we could have the Scratch Europe conference hosted by Raspberry Pi, and it did feel like the perfect connection, and I was so happy it did come about. And I could see it last night at the reception. You could really feel, I've always seen Scratch conferences as somewhat like a family gathering. There's this extended family that's linked together by their ideas and the work they do coming together. And yesterday it felt a little bit like two extended families coming together with lots of overlap, because I met lots of you at the reception who work at a coder dojo but love Scratch or are introducing Scratch at a code club. So we see all these different connections. And I think that we really see that really lays the foundation for what we're really trying to accomplish here. And we look forward to building upon that in the coming days. At a Scratch conference, I think it's really an opportunity to connect with other people. And it's always nice at the conference. I met lots of people yesterday who were at their first Scratch conference, but also a lot of people who are familiar that I've seen at other Scratch conferences. Actually, maybe if we could just take a moment, if anybody who is at their very first Scratch conference could stand up. If you could take a moment to stand up. Okay, so I want to welcome you to the Scratch conference. But now stay standing for a moment, because now I want to talk to people who are sitting down. Part of your responsibility is to try to make sure that all the newcomers feel very welcome. So actually, let's just take a couple minutes and please take a couple minutes talking to the people around you. Find someone you don't know and just chat with them a little bit about what you hope to be accomplishing and what brought you to the Scratch conference. So I always hate breaking up animated conversation. It was great to hear the animated conversation. And that really is what the conference is about. It's more important than what's happening on the stage. It's just the interactions happening. Hopefully you can continue to build on that over the next few days. Again, at the reception, it was great to meet people from so many different places. I think last night Philip said there were people from 28 different countries. And I counted up, I think last night I met people from at least 20 of the countries. So not just here in England, but I remember meeting people from Ireland and Denmark and Netherlands and Belgium and Germany and Austria and Bulgaria and Ukraine and Belarus. Lots of people from Italy, so shout out to big delegation there. And from Spain and Greece. So I'm sorry if I'm missing some, but from other parts of the world too. In addition to the United States, from Chile, from Fiji, from Kenya, from Bahrain, to Israel, to China, to India, to Japan, so from all over the world. So it's great to see people from so many places. As Natalie mentioned in the panel last night, one of the things that excites us so much on the Scratch team when we come to conferences, learning from what's happening everywhere and around the world. Of course, it's great for us to be able to share some of the things that we're doing, but we value so much hearing about how Scratch is being put into practice in so many different places around the world. Actually, if I could just ask everyone, we have a large delegation from our Scratch team at MIT here. If I could ask them just to stand for a moment. So yeah. I asked this down partly because, again, I'm grateful they're the ones who developed a lot of the ideas and that I'll be talking about today, but also for you to see, please go up and talk to people from the Scratch team. Don't feel about, oh, I don't want to bother them. We want to hear from people, what all of you are doing. It's so valuable for us, and we gain so much, and we're so excited to hear about all the different ways that you're using Scratch in ways that we never imagined. So that's just so exciting for us. So I'm going to talk this morning about coding at a crossroads, because I feel that we're at a moment of extraordinary opportunity, but also a moment of extraordinary challenge. And I want to talk, in this session about how in the coming years we can really take advantage of the opportunity and navigate some of those challenges that we see. And in order to look ahead, it's sometimes useful to look back. So let me start by looking back to when we launched Scratch. And I thought about this because since we're here in England, there was an important English role in the launch of Scratch. We launched Scratch on April 14th, 2007. One thing that attracted a lot of attention to Scratch was this article on the BBC website. It attracted so much attention it crashed our servers for a while. But we really appreciated that it was here in England that really, so a lot of the initial use was here in England while we were still asleep in the United States seeing what would happen. People started reading this, starting to get onto Scratch. And you can see in those last 12 years, you can see Scratch has changed a little bit, the web has changed a little bit, I've changed a little bit. So there's been some change, but I think the underlying goals and values have stayed the same. Again, over those last 12 years, there have been a lot of changes. If you just look at the use of Scratch, obviously one way to look at it is just people joining the Scratch online community. So each year, the number of people joining the community has just been growing and growing from 2007 when it was launched to last year, about 10 million people joining the online community. Of course, a lot of people use Scratch without joining the online community. And we see a similar type of growth in all sorts of other ways. The number of projects people are working on. There's a lot of different ways that we just see this really rapid growth of Scratch. And I think that sort of comes to that with this growth, there are a lot of things that we can feel really excited about and proud about. And there's a real special time of that we're very different now than 12 years ago when Scratch was launched. Not just lots more people using Scratch, but different type of acceptance around the world. When we launched Scratch, there's a lot of skepticism about, well, what's the role of coding in schools? It felt like a little fringe activity for a small group of kids who are having special interest in going on to careers in certain technical areas. And clearly there's been a real change in the way people think about coding and being embraced in different governments. Here in England, sort of embraced a lot of national efforts in England and many of your countries to introduce coding in schools. So we see a type of, this part of the opportunity that we see, that there's now potential, not just that it's already out there, but it's being embraced in ways that provides a way to go even further, to allow even more children from more backgrounds to have the opportunities to design, create, experiment, and explore, and learn through coding. But as I said in the beginning, I do see it as a crossroads. This, I actually have been working on an article with my colleague Natalie Rusk about this, and we've decided to frame it in this terms of a crossroads, because we do see this incredible opportunity. But at the same time, as we see this incredible use of Scratch and more broadly coding around the world, we see that coding is introduced in many places in ways that undermine its potential and its promise. And unless we change and have new ways of, the new educational strategies for introducing coding, there's a real risk of disappointment and even backlash of people saying that was a failed experiment. Let's move on to something else. So we do see this as a real challenge. So I do see there's this crossroads. We see there's this opportunity to grow even more than we ever expected, not just in numbers, but to bring the type of educational vision and values that we hope for to more and more kids around the world, but also a real risk of a type of not living up to it and people feeling and having a backlash against. So I think we want to talk today about what is it that we need to do as a community to try to make sure to take advantage of this incredible opportunity that we have. To talk about the type of vision and values that we have is, well, what is it that we're striving for? What is it we're trying to support? Let me try to talk about that through a story of an individual member of the Scratch community. A lot of my inspiration, I think, for all of us on the Scratch team, we get so inspired by just seeing what young people and educators around the world are doing with Scratch. So let me tell a little bit of an extended story about one longtime member of the Scratch community to be able to get some sense of the types of things that we see as possible, and then maybe we can think together about what is it that we need to do to support these types of learning experiences for more people, from more backgrounds, and more places. And I decided to focus on a member of the Scratch community. She was on my mind because she wrote an email this past summer to Natalie and myself, because she was just graduating high school and getting ready to start college. So her Scratch username is Crazy Nimbus. This is Crazy Nimbus. And in her message, her email message, she wrote, "As my high school career comes to an end, I want to thank you for helping me find my something I'm truly passionate about and something I hope becomes a lifelong career." As I said this, as I looked at this, the thing that jumps out to me, it's not that that we got her started towards, oh, she's going to be a computer scientist, so we got her started in that technical career. But for me, what jumps out is find my something that I'm truly passionate about. And for me, if we can help all kids find, at first I thought it was a typo, I thought she said find something. We should find my something. So it was something that was so personal to her that she really felt that she found something that she cared so much about that she was willing to invest the time and the effort that was needed to really be able to succeed at this and to flourish in this and to be fully fulfilled by it. So I think this is something that we really want to try to help all kids find their something in that way. And I think we tried to design Scratch to help all kids find their something in that same way. So as I sort of take a look back at the trajectory for Crazy Nimbus, and I have a video, actually we shot this video, actually I'm not sure, I didn't look up how many years ago, this is probably 6 years ago or something like that, as she was talking about getting started with Scratch, and she'll talk about some of her initial experiences with Scratch. Actually, this is just her profile page. So you can see she's done hundreds of projects in Scratch. So you can go through and see lots of different things. And she's talking about some of her early experiences. This is a video from a few years ago.
I was searching for interactive programming language on the internet, and I came across Scratch. As soon as I shared my first project, I got instant feedback, and I was like, okay, I want to continue with this.
Again, for her, that idea, as soon as she shared, she got instant feedback. So I do think for Crazy Nimbus, she came excited about creating things. In fact, she said, when I talked to her, she said she came because she wanted to create games. She found out that she could create games with this. She started by creating games, and you saw there was one image there of a type of dress-up game that she was doing, and she created a variety of different things. But then she really got hooked. She came for the project, and we see this for many kids. They came for the project and sort of stayed for the community. That she put something, shared it, and then she got this feedback, and it excited her. She gave her new ideas of other things to work on. So having that cycle of trying something out, getting feedback from others, doing something new is something that really was important to her. And then she talked about it this way. Again, I talked to her, and she said, everyone needs a voice with computers. I like sharing my project with the world and seeing what other people think about them. I think that's a dynamic. Again, this captures having a voice, that she really saw this is a way that she could take her ideas and get her ideas out to the world. We often like to make the analogy between coding and writing, that we want kids to learn to write, not because they'll all grow up to become professional journalists or novelists or professional writers, but everyone wants to have a voice to express their ideas. And she also saw that this gave her a voice, another way of expressing her ideas. But then expressing ideas, it's not a one-way street. She wanted to share ideas, but then hear back from other people, see what other people think about them, to engage in a dialogue. So I think this is, we're trying to see from the beginning, we launched Scratch programming language with Scratch Online Community at the same time, because we wanted that dynamic, to be able to express your voice, but to be able to share with others, to collaborate with others, get feedback from others. And that clearly was something that was important for Crazy Nimbus. I think if she went on to do a variety of other projects, because she got so engaged with the community, she started doing a lot of projects where she would start making personalized birthday cards for others, for her friends. So it was a way for her to share with others. So she was creating things to share with others. So first she started making birthday cards, and then there was a trend in the community about Scratchiversary. So your Scratchiversary is when the anniversary of when you started Scratch. So like, here's a project she did on a Scratchiversary. sort of a nice personal expression, so she's using Scratch for personal expression. But if you look inside that project, you also see how Crazy Nimbus is developing some coding skills and systematic reasoning. Like inside that project, you saw the confetti that was coming down for the party. So here it is. You can see that she's doing everything. Clearly, she's learning coordinate systems, randomness, how to sort of create clones and to do things in parallel. So she's learning all these types of problem-solving, systematic reasoning skills, but also personal expression and personal connection with others. Through projects like that,
There was a song that said...
That sort of led to sort of what became one of my favorite projects of the Scratch website. So this is the reason I really got to know Crazy Nimbus, because I love this project. She's talking about a Scratch Day project that she worked on.
There was a song that said, "Happy, happy birthday."
I put Scratch in there. It just became an instant hit on the site and inspired so many people to make their own songs and remixes.
So I'm trying to think, so I did think, well, why is it that I like this project so much? Well, actually, I'll show you a little bit of the project so that you can see why, maybe you can see why I like it. Here's the project.
Happy Scratch Day. Happy Scratch Day. We'll sing a cheer for another year. It's a happy Scratch Day to you.
So for me, that just brings a smile to my face. I've heard this hundreds and hundreds of times, and it still brings a smile to my face. When we run our own Scratch days, the others on the team are tired of me saying, I want to hear the Crazy Nimbus one again. So I'm a little obsessed with it. So I did, well, why am I so obsessed with it? Again, I do see it as, it's a catchy jingle. But also, for me, it captures a lot of the type of spirit that I'm looking for. So if you think what Crazy Nimbus is doing here, the way this is a remix, she's bringing a song, but then putting her own voice into it. She found a happy birthday song, then injected herself into it by modifying it, remixing it. And from the beginning, that's what the name Scratch was about, people remixing things. And we called it, not everyone knows, we called it Scratch because of the way that hip-hop disc jockeys scratch with music and mix different pieces of music together. And we see here her mixing different pieces together, some that she found online, some of her own voice. We also see how she took things from her own work, that confetti falling that she'd used for birthdays, she brought that in. So all she was learning, that's a good programming skill of reusing code, but again, sort of being able to keep on building off other people's things, your own things, being able to combine sort of the art and the music and the coding together. There's a lot of things. She has this countdown timer for how many days till Scratch Day. Actually, we didn't make it so easy to make an easy timer, so she had to do a lot of thinking to how to make a good timer. So she was really solving some challenging problems with this. So I think there's just so many elements of this that, for me, capture the spirit of what we were hoping for. Actually, I was really then fortunate. Actually, she doesn't, at one of our Scratch days in Boston, she became so interested in Scratch, she decided to come to one of our Scratch days in Boston. She lives hundreds of miles away, but she convinced her family to come. And I didn't know she was going to be there. It was just, when I saw her, it was like, seeing this celebrity sighting. I was so excited to see Crazy Nimbus because, for me, she was her project had been such a big inspiration for Scratch Day. So it was so great to meet. That was the first time I met her, was at this Scratch Day when she came to visit. But I think that because of her interaction with Scratch, she saw lots of other opportunities arise for her. She says, thanks to the Scratch community, I was able to grow my confidence and leadership experience. And I think that's another thing. It wasn't just about learning coding skills or even her creativity skills, but building a type of confidence. Because of the ways that she was able to participate in the community, she really started to see herself in different ways. And it grew, and it had influence outside of the Scratch community. Actually, this is a story I heard through Natalie, who talked to Crazy Nimbus's father, who brought her to the Scratch Day. And he was saying that in the school where she went to, there was an after-school coding club. And when she first went there, it was primarily boys in the club, which we see too often. And at first, they sort of weren't really paying attention. They were somewhat dismissive of her. And she said that it was because of her experiences on Scratch, she'd built up the confidence to persevere and persist, and ultimately was able to emerge and play an important role within this club. So, and then to see that this is something that she did want to go on with. So although she had great experience in the community, it was also something she brought with her out into her interaction with other people, into the world, into her everyday life, and that brought that confidence in the ways that she could express herself and interact. And the leadership experience, one thing that within our community, within the online community, we try to provide opportunities for young people to be able to take on different roles in the community. So she's really taken advantage of that. So our community team has spent a lot of time being able to see what are the different pathways that people can create. So like one of the things that Crazy Nimbus participate in is there's a Scratch Welcoming Committee. So SWC is Scratch Welcoming Committee. So when anyone new joins the online community, they're taken to a page where they can see projects from the Welcoming Committee. So an existing longtime Scratcher can welcome them and give them advice and ideas. So Crazy Nimbus was part of that, and then she made a member's guide for it. So she really became an active participant and leader within the community. I think that's something else we want to see, that, again, it's not just learning the skills or producing the projects, but become a member of a community, whether it's online or in your everyday life, and to the different roles you can play. Through the leadership that she did online, I think had some influence about a leadership role she took offline, that in her own community where she lived, she heard a news report that some local schools didn't have any computers. And it had been such an important experience for her that she decided that was a real problem. So she, while in high school, started an NGO that was called Got Tech Richmond. Richmond is the city where she lives. And then she organized to raise funds to be able to buy computers for these schools where they weren't there, and then to organize some workshops for kids and for educators to get started using Scratch in those schools. And again, it's a way that, again, she took on these new, saw what she had benefited from and was giving back to others, which is something else that we sort of see as part of the being member of an extended community, that it's not just learning from the community, giving back to the community. And when she wrote that letter this summer about her plans, she's going to college in another state, and she already has plans to start a Get Tech outlet, or Got Tech outlet in the new city where she'll be going to college. And she talked about that her plan in college is she's planned to double major in computer science, but also in media and design, which I think also grows out of Scratch, that she had the computer science background from Scratch, but also the expressive side of Scratch. So if we take a look at this, experiences of Crazy Nimbus over the years, I think we see that clearly she's not just learning, the technical skills of coding, but she's learning to think creatively, to reason systematically, to work collaboratively. And we always think about those are some of the goals we're always aiming for, because we see those are types of skills and capabilities that are important for everybody, regardless of what they're going to grow up and be or exactly what role they're going to play in their community. These types of skills are going to be important for everybody in today's society. So these are the things that we're most interested in supporting as kids are working with Scratch. And I think you could see that with Crazy Nimbus. Clearly, there's all the creative thinking that went into those projects you saw, the systematic reasoning of building up the code, and the working collaboratively, both online and offline, that she was doing. So we see this as something we want to try to bring this to more and more people. And we see these skills becoming even more important today than ever. I mean, if I'd been here 100 years ago, I hope I still would have been arguing for these skills. But to be honest, these weren't necessarily the most important workplace skills 100 years ago. And so a lot of schools were set up to support other skills because that's what was needed in the workplace. We do have to be at a time right now. I think these are the skills that will be the most important skills in the workplace in the future, but also important skills, but they're important things for everyone, just for their own personal lives, their community lives. I think thinking creatively is something that's not just something that will enable you to do a better job at work, but it brings meaning and fulfillment and joy into life. And I think so these are the things we want to support for all aspects of people's lives. And I think most important today, as we're going through such a period of rapid change, as the world is changing so quickly, we know that today's children are going to face a never-ending stream of unknown and uncertain and unpredictable situations. So that ability to think creatively will be more important today, both at the workplace and personal life, than ever before. And with trends through machine learning and AI advances, as computers play new roles in society and take over some of the more routine tasks, these abilities of working collaboratively, thinking creatively, the type of things you see Crazy Nimbus doing are things that are going to be so valued in all aspects of the culture and society in the future. So we're always trying to think, how is it that we can support the development of these types of capabilities? And again, in our group, when we think about it, I think many of you know we have these guiding principles for trying to support this that we call the 4 Ps of creative learning: projects, passion, peers, and play. And I think you can see from Crazy Nimbus how she really was benefiting from this. You could see how she was working on projects. She had, what was it, 230-some projects. So she learned about Scratch by creating projects. She was sharing those projects with peers, that she was putting them out there, getting feedback, collaborating with others. She was clearly working on things she was passionate about. She was building on ideas that she really cared about and building up projects, and doing a playful experimental spirit. When we say play, it's not just about fun and having games, or about having fun and playing games, although I'm sure Crazy Nimbus was having a lot of fun. But for us, play is a playful spirit is about experimenting and trying new things and testing the boundaries. And if you look at the range of Crazy Nimbus's projects, you can see that she is doing exactly that, of having that sort of playful spirit where she's constantly experimenting, and how we can help all kids grow up with that spirit of always experimenting, taking risks, trying new things, is what we want to support. So how is it that we can do this? Because it's a challenge. We see examples. I highlight Crazy Nimbus this morning, but again, there are literally millions and millions of other examples out there in the Scratch community. Many of them, I'm sure, in the classes and workshops that you run. But how is it that we can help support more of those experiences in more places around the world? That's the real challenge that we face as we look ahead, and we see that in many places where Scratch is being introduced, that's not the experience the kids have. And we have to see how is it that we can try to make sure that all kids have the type of experience that Crazy Nimbus had, or not exactly that experience, but this experience of, supported by these 4 Ps of creative learning. Again, we get frustrated when we see certain things. So here's an example that we saw on the website a few years ago. I looked on the website one morning, and I saw these 6 projects show up on the website. And at first I thought maybe there's a problem. These look like 6 identical projects. But you look, they're from different kids. And clearly this is from a classroom where the teacher said, do this, do this, do this, now share. So they're all doing the exact same project and then sharing. And again, there's probably something that they're learning from that. They're learning some of the basic things about using the interface. There's certain technical concepts that they might be learning from it. But this is not the way that they're going to be able to start to express themselves creatively with the technology. It's not the way they're going to find my special something, as Crazy Nimbus did. And we see this in many places. Actually, I was talking to, I don't know if she's here this morning at the reception, Diavlo, who's a longtime Scratcher. And she was saying her very first experience with Scratch was in school. And basically, the teacher had everyone just copy a script. I think it was to make a snowman or something. And everyone was doing the exact same script. So her first experience, she didn't see this as very interesting. And she then got reintroduced to Scratch by a friend and then saw the possibilities. And then later again at school, and again, it gets introduced in so many different ways. And another teacher who did open up possibilities. So it's just such a variety of different ways that it gets introduced. Of course, in many places these days, it's not just, obviously, it's an extreme form of just everyone copying the exact same script. We see many other places where kids are given the same problem to solve. And it is something where they're also working and trying to come up, and they're developing some problem-solving skills with this. But oftentimes it's introduced in a way where there's one right answer, and they get graded on where they got the correct answer, or they get graded on if they used the fewest number of blocks to get to that answer. And again, I'm not saying there's nothing that's learned through those exercises, but that's not the way for kids to learn to be thinking creatively and working collaboratively and reaching the type of, and having the type of experiences that we're really looking for. Now, sometimes there's a challenge when we talk about the importance of not just having kids follow the script and having a too rigid introduction. Sometimes people misinterpret that and think we mean to swing to the opposite extreme and say, okay, here it is, go off, do whatever you want. And of course, for some kids, just come to the Scratch website, say do whatever you want will be a great experience, but not for all kids. And even for kids where it might be a good experience for a while, but then they won't be able to continue. We need to provide support to help kids reach the possibilities. We want kids to be able to have their own dreams that they're chasing. We need to provide the support in order to help them reach those dreams. So we're always thinking about how is it that we need to provide the support that kids need to enable them to follow their own interests, to follow their own passions, to connect with others, but provide them the way to follow those interests, but also the support they need in order to make progress and have fulfilling experiences. So we're always looking at that, and I think that's a big challenge that all of us face, is trying to find those right ways of doing that. It's something that we try to a lot more of our time these days is how we can communicate these ideas. Again, I wrote my book, Lifelong Kindergarten, to spread some of those ideas. Some of those ideas get spread through an online course that we run, Learning Creative Learning. A couple of the Scratch team members here, Carmelo and Lily, but a bunch of others. There's a whole team of people that have been working on it. And it sort of helps spread these ideas and helps people learn about, it's a 6-week online course where you're learning about those 4 Ps of creative learning. And there's been great, and that some of you I know have been participating in the course, and it's going to run again, I think, in October, November this year. If people are interested, please take a look at it. We're also trying to see what other types of support are needed, although this has been a great way for people to come together and share the big ideas that underlie our work with creative learning and Scratch. We do get feedback from educators who say, this is great, I now have a better sense of the vision, but how do I put it into practice? What do I do on Monday morning? And we realize there's a real need for that. And that's one thing that motivated us to start a site that's called Scratch in Practice. There's been a bunch of people from our group involved in that, Lily and Eric Schilling and Natalie and lots of other people, the design team setting up the site. So lots of people on the team doing this. And we've started doing it to introduce ways of how do you bring Scratch into practice in a way that supports those 4 Ps of creative learning and opens up those opportunities. We also see this site, this is not just a site for us at MIT to be sharing our ideas, although that's one thing we do, but it's also a way there's so much knowledge in the community. Again, one thing that is great about the conference is that people share ideas with each other. You learn about what others are doing, and we want this to be the same, for people to learn from one another. We just see so many educators doing so many creative things with Scratch, and we want this to be a place where educators can learn from one another. So we have various videos on here about educators talking about the ways that they use Scratch. Let me show a few examples, talk about the type of ideas and projects and approaches for introducing Scratch and building on Scratch experiences. So the first example actually highlights someone who's now a graduate student in our group, Jaleesa Trapp, but she'd been a high school computer science teacher before coming. She's talking here about some of the ways that she used Scratch in her high school class. So I'll play this and then I'll talk a little bit more about it.
To support student interest, I allowed my students to work on how-to animations using Scratch. The purpose was for them to have an opportunity to show people something that they know how to do. Instead of just doing what I tell them to do, they got the opportunity to choose something that they really like to do and teach other people. We were also studying accessibility at the time, so students also had to use text and audio so that others can use their instructions as well.
I think, so again, Jaleesa was in a school where there were certain expectations about what it is the kids would be learning, and also some things in the curriculum that they were going to be evaluated based on, I think initially it said like the number of blocks, that using blocks from different categories in Scratch, and she didn't see that as a meaningful way of engaging kids. So first of all, she started out building on their interests. She knew her kids, loved watching how-to videos on YouTube. She thought, well, why not use Scratch to make their own how-to videos? So it's something that's sort of built on things kids were already interested in. And then doing that, she had set up a whole sort of design process where they were sort of coming up with ideas, building prototypes, sharing them with others, getting feedback, revising over time. So it's a way for, again, also in the standards was about sort of learning about the design process. At the end, they would share with others. There were presentation skills that were getting developed. And to make sure, she wanted to make sure that kids did use those blocks from different categories, but she didn't just say you're required to use blocks from different categories, but she saw that also by linking the how-tos with accessibility, it was natural kids would start using things that were both visual and voice, and you had to input sound and text and then voice. So it sort of had kids doing things across. So it's both having them think about their audience as they were doing things, but also gave them a way of experiencing a broader range of Scratch. So it's a way of bringing together kids, building on their interests, being able to work on things that were personal to them, but still setting it up in a way that they were going to having experiences that cut across the range of different capabilities in Scratch, learning about a wide range of things, and also making a connection to doing things with an audience in mind. I'll show the next example. Actually, this one comes from a regular member of the Scratch conference at MIT that we met her there. She's from Mexico, Lula. And she was teaching early elementary school, I think this second or third grade. And it was in a unit where they were studying the life cycle of the butterfly. And of course, that was in the curriculum, and there are many ways of studying it. But she integrated Scratch and robotics in a way to make a richer experience, to make sure that it could engage with the interests of a wide range of kids and make it meaningful to kids. So it's not just that they brought in and made their own butterfly garden and brought in butterflies, did observations of the butterflies, but then used those observations to inform the animations they did in Scratch. And these animations in Scratch informed by the observations. And then they used Lego Redo to do robotics, but also lots of craft materials, using familiar materials. I'll show the video, you'll see, again, letting kids use things that are familiar to them along with what's new. And this idea of combining the physical and the digital, the familiar and the new, is something that I think comes across well in the work that Lula was doing.
Tenemos otro que se llama Jardín Botánico de las Mariposas. Es el ciclo de la mariposa, cómo empieza, cómo termina, y los niños hacen los sprites, ellos los dibujan, ellos los animan, hacen su jardín afuera, en la parte externa, ponen los mecanismos robóticos y crean sus propias mariposas de tela que traen de su casa, de camisetas, blusas, todo eso. Y entonces toda la parte de ciencia, de biología también se cubre.
So again, there I think you can see making clear connections to the curriculum, but doing it in a way that really is aligned with those 4 Ps to make sure that kids are not just learning about the science in this case or about the technology, but also developing as creative thinkers, working collaboratively, developing all of those skills that we see as so essential. I'll show one final example that actually comes from some work that another member of our group, Champika Fernando, is just doing. She spent some time in Chicago. There's Champika there. This is at a professional development workshop. She was working with a collection of schools in the Chicago public school system. And part of it was doing professional development with teachers about introducing Scratch and coding and make sure it got introduced in a way that cut across and integrate into the curriculum. And then teachers did bring it back into their classrooms, and she was working with them about how to use it, again, to combine with things, things they were doing with sketching the physical world, doing things on the screen, connecting it to, I think this is a social studies class where they're taking themes from current events and doing things on the screen. But actually, one of the most interesting things that came out of the Chicago experience over the last few months was not what was happening in the classroom, what happened in the evenings. Champika and others set up a series of family creative nights where whole families would come together, often in a school gymnasium, and come together, parents and kids and extended families. This is based on some of the work that a former student in our group, Rick Rose Roque, had done with family creative learning. And it ended up being really popular that more than in each of the cases, I think it was done in 9 different schools, and 100 or 200 people would come to these. So the school administrators were struck by this, because if they just ask parents to come in to be lectured to by the administrators, that doesn't work very well. But here the families got engaged. You could see mothers work with daughters, fathers working with sons, parents working together with their kids, grandparents coming in. There's a grandparent, I also see there's a bottle here, so clearly there's some really young kids too. So this was for our new super secret Scratch Junior project that will be unveiled next year. But clearly it was not all kids just coming into Scratch, but older siblings, younger siblings. And it became a family experience where they could sort of experience this together and to understand together why these ideas are important. And I do think, again, it comes back to the idea of community again. So again, we set up Scratch as an online community, but to us what's so important is the community in the world as well. And again, I think a lot of you know the behind coder dojos and code clubs, that idea of community in a space is so important. And something that we see here too, bring different people together to learn with and from one another, is something that we see is so central in supporting those 4 Ps of creative learning. So I think for us, it's always coming back to this. I didn't talk today very much about sort of the new technology we work on, but trust me, there's lots of new things being worked on, and we are excited to talk to you. There'll be other sessions about it, and there are lots of members of the team here who are doing great work on the design and the development of that. But But as whether we're doing the design of new technologies or the design of new outreach, new resources or outreach projects, all of those are integrated in a way that are informed by these 4 Ps. We're constantly thinking whether we're designing a new block for an extension in Scratch or a new physical device to connect to Scratch, or whether they're designing some new tutorial, video tutorial, or designing a new after-school program. We're always thinking about how can our design of this be informed by projects, passion, peers, and play? How can we provide children with opportunities to work on projects based on their passions in collaboration with peers in a playful spirit? Because we know that's really the way that we can help kids both be prepared for an ever-changing world, but also have a most fulfilling life. So again, to end with this fork in the road and the crossroads that we're at, we do see challenges. It's not easy. I think one thing that's clear is it's been so successful spreading some of the technology around the world. It's amazing how in the last decade, so many more people are using Scratch and engaging with coding. But we also know that although we've seen that it's possible to spread the technology, that spreading the educational values and vision is much, much harder. But in some ways, we see that as one of the biggest challenges for the decade ahead, and one of the things that's most important about conferences like this. So I hope people can keep this in mind as you spend time at the conference over the next few days, and as you go after the conference to the weeks and months ahead, because there's a hard challenge that we face. It's not easy to support this type of learning. It's something that we really need to turn into all different types of people working together, whether it's the developers, the educators, the administrators, the policymakers. We all have to unite behind a new vision of learning where we really value kids learning to think creatively and developing their creative capacities, and then develop new ways to support kids in those efforts. It's going to take a lot of us working together. Hopefully a conference like this can give us a start, and then we can continue to work together to build a movement to really provide new opportunities so that all kids from all places have the opportunity to grow up as creative thinkers and be able to be full and active participants in tomorrow's society. Thanks so much.